and welcome everyone. My name is Aditya and in this video we are going to be exploring Euler's twisting function and we will be proving its multiplicative property and eventually we will be proving Euler's product formula. Euler's twisting function counts the number of positive integers less than a given integer n which are relatively prime to n. So it is represented by phi of n. So basically phi of n means that the number of integers x greater than equal to 1 and less than equal to n such that GCD of x comma n is equal to 1. So let's take some examples to understand this more. So phi of 9 will be the cardinality of the set of numbers which are relatively co-prime with 9. So GCD of 1 with 9 is 1, GCD of 2 with 9 is 1, GCD of 4 with 9 is 1, GCD of 5, GCD of 7 and GCD of 8. So the cardinality of this set, that is the number of elements which are relatively co-prime to 9, is equal to 6. Hence phi of 9 is 6. Now let's take an example of a prime number, phi of 7. So since 7 is prime, all the numbers less than than 7 are also relatively prime with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are all the numbers which are relatively prime with 7. So the cardinality will be 6. So you might have noticed already that phi of a prime number is p minus 1, since any number will be relatively prime with a prime number. So this is an interesting fact to notice. Now that we know the definition of Euler's twisting function, let's move on to a very important but basic property which actually you will see later that it paves the way to be able to prove Euler's product formula. So the property that I'm going to be discussing now is multiplicative property. So it means that phi of x, that is the Euler's phi function, is a multiplicative function. What that means is that if we want to calculate phi of m into n, where m and n are relatively prime, then phi of mn can be written as phi of m into phi of n. So this is the basic definition of a multiplicative function, where the base case, that is phi of 1, will be 1, and then if a and b, or say m and n, are relatively prime, then phi of m into n is equal to phi of m into phi of n. Now let's move towards proving this property. Now you may ask, why do we need to even prove this? I mean, it feels intuitive, right? But then it is mathematics. The more you apply reasoning and the more you try to prove even the trivial or the most intuitive facts, you grow. And another reason I want to prove this is that when I was trying to learn this, I saw that there were many complicated proofs, like those involving Chinese remainder theorem, or some of them even had some concepts of group theory. So the proof that I will be discussing here is not that complex. You just need to know basic number theory, and it is also the simple and elegant proof in my terms. And if you find any other simple proof, please let me know in the comments below. So let's get started. So we want to prove that phi of mn is equal to phi of m into phi of n, where GCD of m comma n is equal to 1, that is they are relatively prime. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the numbers from 1 to mn in a rectangular fashion like this. So I will explain you while enumerating through them. So I will have m rows, 1, 2, 3 till m. I will enumerate the rows vertically from top to bottom, and I will have n columns. So if first row is 1, 2, 3 till m, the next row starts with m plus 1, m plus 2, m plus 3 up to 2m, And similarly, the third column starts with 2m plus 1, 2m plus 2, up to 3m. And now you can see the general flow, how I have tried to express it in a rectangular fashion. The last element of the first row will be n minus 1 into m plus 1. Similarly, the last element of second row will be n minus 1 into m plus 2. And the last element of the last row will be n into m. So these are the, like, you can call the first row numbers as the indices of the row, right? Since the rows are numbered from 1 to m and we are enumerating top to bottom in the same fashion from 1 to m. So if you see, the numbers in the rth row are of the form k m plus r, where k runs from 0 to n minus 1. So this is nothing but basically I have tried to express a generic row from the fact that we have displayed it in a rectangular fashion. So now after some time you will be knowing that why I'm trying to sort of display those numbers in such a fashion. So now let's look at some things. So let's consider some row. Let's say its index is r. Now if d is the GCD of r comma if d is the GCD of r comma m, now let's try to think what happens if d is greater than 1. So if d is greater than 1, d divides m and d divides r. Since d is the GCD of r and m, we can infer that d divides km plus r. So if d divides km plus r and d divides m, we can say that GCD of element of row and mn is at least d, because element of row, like d divides element of row also and d divides m also. So GCD of element of row and mn is at least d. So for such a row where GCD of r comma m is greater than 1, there won't be any element which is relatively coprime with mn. So we need to ignore such rows. So now let's see what happens if d is actually equal to 1. So if d is equal to 1, that is GCD of r comma m is equal to 1, then using Euclidean algorithm I can say that GCD of km plus r comma m is also equal to 1. What this means is that if for a row GCD of the row index and m is 1, then every entry in that row is relatively coprime with m. So our answer should lie in this row itself, because we are looking for numbers which are relatively coprime with mn. That is, they should be coprime with m as well as n. So far we have, if GCD of r comma m is equal to 1, then elements of that row are coprime with m. Now let's try to think how many such rows are there whose all elements will be coprime with m. So if we go back to our table, we can see that our r, which is the index of the row number, varies from 1 to m. So actually finding how many rows are there whose each element is coprime with m is nothing but the Euler's Tolosian function for m, since r varies from 1 to m. So we are looking for all those indices of rows less than equal to m which are coprime with m, that is GCD of r comma m is 1. So for this the answer will be phi of m. So phi of m rows where all entries are coprime with m. But our answer is not yet here over, because we have just find all the elements which are coprime with m. Now we need to find the elements which are coprime with m and n. So now let's try to dig deep into a row where we have GCD of r comma m is equal to 1. let's say its index is r also. Now let's get back to our generic row formula. So our generic row formula was ki m plus r, where I ranges from 0 to n minus 1 since we have n elements in a row. Now let's try to think a bit. Can there be two entries in a row when such that when we modulo them with n we get the same residue? Can there be such a case? Note that in a generic formula for a row element, m and r are already fixed, that is they are constant. So can there be two entries such that ki m plus r and kj m plus r modulo n are congruent modulo n, that is they give the same residue when we do modulo of them with n? Can there be such a case? You can easily see that there cannot be any case because m and r are already constant and ki kj are different numbers. If there is such a case, then it is guaranteed that ki equal to kj. So what this means is that each row is a complete residue set with respect to n. What this means is that what a complete residue set means is that the elements in that set when are done modulo with respect to n correspond to each residue class with modulo n. So I will explain it in a more detailed format. So let's suppose that all the possible residues of n will be 0, 1, 2 till n minus 1, right? So if there is another set a1, a2, a3 dot an, where if we modulo each element of the set with n, then we are bound to have a one-to-one correspondence with some of these residue classes. That is, there won't be any two elements in this set, that is there won't be any ai and aj which correspond to a single residue class, that is there won't be any case ai modulo ai congruent to aj modulo n. So this is said to be a complete residue set. So if each of our rows entries forms a complete residue set with respect to n, that is we are bound to get residues till n minus 1 if we do modulo n for each of our row, then we can say that we have phi of n numbers or entries in that row which will be co-prime with n. Note that initially we had found that we have phi of m rows where each entry of the row is relatively co-prime with m, and now we have found that we have phi of n entries in each of such a row which are co-prime with n. So this means that we have phi of m into phi of n entries which are co-prime with both m and n. So this proves our multiplicative property that phi of m into n is equal to phi of m into phi of n. So I'm just putting it in a box so that later we can come back to it. So now let's move to another property which will also help us to prove the product formula for Euler's function. So that property is actually very simple. So it says that, second property, it says that for any prime p, phi of p raised to a is equal to p raised to a minus p raised to a minus 1. So now we need to prove this. So it states that if we want to find the phi of a power of a prime, we can find it using the formula p raised to a minus p raised to a minus 1. So let's try to think GCD of an element, say x comma p raised to a greater than 1. Like for GCD of x comma p raised to a to be greater than 1, what can be the values of x? Let's try to think this. So since p is a prime power, we can have the GCD greater than 1 only if x belongs to either p, 2p, 3p, that is x is a multiple of p up to p raised to a minus 1 into p, since p raised to a is our last element, since we are looking for elements less than equal to p raised to a which are co-prime with p. So if we see GCD of x comma p raised to a is greater than 1 if x is a multiple of p and there are p raised to a minus 1 multiples of p, right? From this we are inferring that since there are p raised to a minus 1 multiples of p less than equal to p raised to a, so the number of elements which are relatively co-prime with p raised to a will be the total number of elements p raised to a minus p raised to a minus 1. So that will be our phi of p raised to a. Since total numbers till p raised to a are p raised to a and the numbers which are multiples we will subtract from it so that we get the remaining relatively prime numbers with p raised to a. So this will be our second property. Now that we know both of these properties, the first one being multiplicative property and the second one being how to find Euler's function value for a power of a prime, I think we are ready to explore the Euler's product formula and prove it. So let's move to learn the Euler's product formula. So Euler's product formula, so it is nothing but it gives us a formula to calculate Euler's function for a particular value of n. So I will first write it down. So phi of n is equal to n into pi of distinct prime p which divides n over 1 minus 1 by p. So pi is a multiplicative function and p is a distinct prime. So now we will try to prove this using the two properties that we had seen earlier. First one being the multiplicative property and second one being the phi of a power of a prime. So using fundamental arithmetic theorem, we know that I can write n as a product of distinct prime factors. So I will write it as p1 raised to k1, p2 raised to k2, so on up to pr raised to kr, where p1 is less than p2 is less than pr and each ki is greater than equal to 1. Using the multiplicative property we can say that phi of n then can be written as phi of p1 raised to k1 into phi of p2 raised to k2 into phi of p3 raised to k3, so on up to phi of pr raised to kr. Now using the second property, that is phi of power of a prime, we know that we can write it as, let's go to our equation, we can write it as p1 raised to k1 minus p1 raised to k1 minus 1 into p2 raised to k2 minus p2 raised to k2 minus 1, so on up to pr raised to k2 minus pr raised to k2 pr raised to kr minus 1. So we can rewrite it into p1 raised to k1 minus 1 into p1 minus 1 into p2 raised to k2 minus 1 into p2 minus 1 up to pr raised to kr minus 1 into pr minus 1. We are doing nothing but just taking the prime powers common, and again this can be rewritten into p1 raised to k1 into 1 minus 1 upon p1 into p2 raised to k2 into 1 minus 1 upon p2 up to pr raised to kr into 1 minus 1 upon pr. So if we group all the prime powers and all the reciprocals, it can be rewritten as p1 raised to k1 into p2 raised to k2 up to pr raised to kr. Similarly, 1 minus 1 upon p1 into 1 minus 1 upon p2 into up to 1 minus 1 upon pr. So if you see the LHS of the multiplication, it is nothing but the expansion of n using fundamental theorem arithmetic. So I can simply rewrite it as n into 1 minus 1 upon p1 into 1 minus 1 upon p2 up to 1 minus 1 upon pr. So using the multiplicative operator, we can write it as pi over p, such that p is a distinct prime in the prime factorization of n over 1 minus 1 upon pi, where pi is a distinct prime factor of n. So there we go. I hope this was an informative video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for further such videos, and do subscribe my channel.